Well, welcome. Welcome. I have a fabulous guest for you today. She is actually overseas, y'all. I would like to welcome the fabulous Sherisse, Queen Sherisse, to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. And I love being introduced as Queen Sherisse. I will take that and I will straighten my crown and own it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I like to let my guests introduce themselves. I mean, it's one thing to read off of a card, but you are fabulous in and of itself. And so go ahead, Queen, and introduce yourself and let us know who you are.
Thank you so much. Yes, my name is Sherisse Bisram. My title is Inner Power Activation Leader and Intuitive Healer for Women.
Love that. Love that. Wow. Let's get right into it. We all have a story, right? We all have a story. We're all on a journey. And so I like women to hear other women's stories because I believe that empowers all of us, right? And so kind of take us back to the beginning, how we know where you're at right now, but kind of take us back because I think sometimes women feel like, oh, well, I'm not her. I couldn't do what she's doing. She's special, or, maybe she, was gifted with something else. And at the end of the day, no, we're all the same. We're all human beings, and we all possess what I would say is something innate and powerful and beautiful within us that we can give to the world. It's just a matter of, stepping into it or awakening that. And so take us kind of back to the beginning.
Yeah, thank you so much. I will. And you may need to rein me in because it's a long old story, but I'm going to try and give you a nutshell for sure.
Sure.
Yeah, my work now, I specialize in trauma healing, and that's because I went through my fair share of trauma growing up. So basically, I live in England and in Kent, which is a very now diverse, but it wasn't growing up. So there's lots of factors to my childhood that all added up together, and I'll sort of give you a quick overview of that. So, my father was an addict, and as a result of that, me and my sister experienced obviously a lot of neglect and abuse from that situation. And because my dad was like that, my mum then was working all the time. So we was experiencing physical neglect from the fact that my dad just wasn't physically able to take care of us, and then emotional neglect because no one was parenting in the house. And I would constantly witness just argument after argument. It was a very volatile household. So at about 6 years old, I remember making that commitment to myself that I'd never let anyone treat me like that. And from that point on, I stepped into being that masculine father role of the house. So, very young age, I started to take control of the situation and just filled a gap that was there. No one asked me to do it. I just felt like that was necessary to survive. And it was very much needed because as I got older, as my dad got a bit more violent, he would obviously try to have outbursts. And for some reason, and I always put it down to the energy of my soul, because again, being very spiritual, this is all, it all crosses over. I believe that I've always had a very strong energy about me. So people don't tend to push too far because I can sense that I am a warrior, I'm a
Yeah.
lioness, it's just not that. And even my own father, he wouldn't come for me, but I'd always be the protector. So that was always going on in my inner world, in my home. And then the area that I lived in, it wasn't diverse, as I said. So there was constant racism. And it would be like I'd walk home from school and people would be shouting things out the window or walking past me and saying racist slurs. It was just, unnecessary. But again, I think because, and this is where everything happens for a reason, because I was used to volatility in the household, I then developed such a thick skin and a sharp tongue. I am I always say I'm a black belt in arguments. Some people stutter, they get insecure, they go inwards. I thrive. It's like the fire within me comes out and I
Yeah.
just the wrath, it takes out everything. And that was actually how I define myself. So we spoke about in my podcast when you came on
Yes.
mine about that wearing that badge of honor. That was me. I wore the badge of honor of being the protector, the strong one. I was the one
Yeah.
everyone depended on. But
Yes.
inevitably, I carried the weight of the world on my shoulders and I wasn't allowing myself to be feminine. And as a result of that, everyone saw a really strong character on the outside, but inside I was crumbling. I didn't cry in front of anyone for about 20 years, and I'd cry myself to sleep every night because I just was carrying the weight of that. Now, in between this journey, between the ages of 12 to 17, I had 11 members of my family die back to back. It wasn't a freak accident, it was just life, like life was happening, lots of different things. My family are from Guyana, which is considered the Caribbean, even though it's in South America. So with that, it's a culture of alcoholism. It's just part of that. And a lot of my members of my family died because of that. My dad was one of them. And yeah, it was just reinforcing this need for me to put armor on to protect, like to protect everyone, protect myself from feeling, but I was surviving. And, that's why the armor was so important. Along with that, I had aspirations of being a dancer because I wanted to prove myself to people. I wanted to prove that you can come from, a low income, volatile household and be a little brown girl with a big dream and achieve it. And I did get to do that, but equally, it still had its setbacks, massive setbacks. Again, the industry wasn't as diverse as it could have been, 12 years ago, and I was constantly hitting brick walls. I was going through walls. Lots of things happened, like financially. I was working 3 or 4 different jobs to put myself through university, which is college for you all. And I was also being met with car issues back to back. Like, we have a system called the AA, which is like the breakdown recovery. They knew
Okay.
me by name. I was like, Sherisse, is it you again? Yeah, I broke it down again. So it was just
Oh,
constant
yeah,
thing after thing. My laptop got stolen, back to back things. Everything that could have gone wrong did. And now I can see that that was my mindset and my blueprint, that things were going to go wrong because they always did. So I know, and I can take full accountability for that now in a healed space. At the time, I couldn't see it. And, that kind of repeated itself over and over again until about 23, when I came back from the second failed dance job where the person in charge was trying to sleep with the girls on the team. And I was like, no, not for me. Never been a victim, not planning on being one now. So that did get me into a lot of trouble as well, having that ethos, because I was deemed as being aggressive for a girl and all of the things as it happens when you step out of the societal norm, should I say. But again, I'd experienced more trauma than most people at that young age, and I didn't know that at the time. So at 23, I kind of decided that I'm going to stop living my life for everyone else. Like, I was trying to prove to be a dancer, like I was like, you can do this thing, you can do it. And I love dance. It's always been a release for me. I felt free in that space.
yeah,
I felt seen in that space. And I was really, really good at it. I mean, I still am to this day. But the reason I was doing it was for the ego, and it was a self-fulfilling thing. So I started my healing journey at 23, very loosely, surface level. I just started journaling again. And I'd always journaled as a kid. I kind of went back into it. That was a tool for me and a space to just release the emotions that I was feeling. But I didn't realize how much I was harboring still until the pandemic hit. And that was when I had obviously time to stop. Now, my whole life, as I said, worked 3 to 4 different jobs, and then I would save up, I'd go traveling, I'd come back, do the same thing again. So I was in this cycle that was just repeating itself. Again, I was the shoulder that everyone cried on. I was the person that was there for everyone. I was a people pleaser, but not wrapped up in the soft, sensitive way, in the hard shell way. No one knew that my inner world was decaying. No one,
uh-huh.
not a single person. And when the pandemic hit, it was that real thing where I was planning to move to LA to keep pursuing my dance career, and something had to, I couldn't do that because by the time the pandemic would have passed, the paperwork would have gone through 2 years later. I would have been an old dancer in dance world life. And I just thought, maybe I'm not supposed to be there. And I made that aspiration at 18 years old. But then at 28, did I really want to do that? Did I still want to do that? So I had to think back to what I was actually really good at. And I've always been great at connecting with people. So then that kind of like inspired me to then look at how I could further that. So I went back into education and I did my master's degree at that time, where I came across how dance acts as an intervention for childhood trauma, because my speciality within dance was female empowerment. Didn't realize how many crossovers there would be as the universe works. And I was reading through the data like, oh, these children went into care because of this, or that they went into care because of that. That's really strange. That's what I went through. And then I was like hit with that hard realization that, oh my gosh, I've experienced severe childhood trauma. That's what happened in my life, and why I'm the way I am now. So
Yeah.
that was the real awakening of the, you know, trauma healing journey for me. I also kind of was I sort of went to get into a relationship around that time and it crumbled, and I was like, something happened about vulnerability, and I just realized I was never vulnerable in my life. Never let myself be
Yeah.
vulnerable. And it was because I was so heavily in my masculine energy that I didn't know what femininity even was on a natural way, because everything was external and strong and hard. So that was the moment where the armor had to come off. I had to heal. I had to surrender. And it was alien and it was hard and difficult. But from that space, obviously, I continued the process. I went through the dark night of the soul over and over and
Yeah.
over again. This is what I say to people, like, healing isn't linear, it's a rough road, but I
Yes.
wish I had someone there to hold my hand. And it was really beautiful. I had a moment probably 2 years ago where I look back on the journal that I wrote in the pandemic, and I realized that I'm the version of myself, even 2 years ago, that I needed back then. So it just continues to fulfill this cycle of, like, when you step fully into your authentic self, your true
Yeah.
self, your vulnerable self, that raw self that you are supposed to be, which for me I can see now is a balance between the masculine and the feminine, but definitely so much more of the feminine than I've ever been in my whole life. That is the true awakening of my soul. And from that, I've been able to access some like intuitive gifts that I never knew I had. And, my spirituality has ascended massively as a result of it. So, yeah, this awakening, this healing journey that I went on, put me in this pathway to where I am now. And it's so crazy because I can just have a conversation for like 3 minutes with someone. I know exactly what they need because of
Yeah.
this work and from living through my own experiences of it and understanding it. And I've always been a people person, always, but now it's just, yeah, everything has played into each other, fed into each other, even being a dancer and understanding myself and being performative in confidence and not actually having
Yeah.
natural confidence.
Right.
Now I can fully, hand on my heart, stand here and say, I'm so confident in who I am. And I fully love myself, for everything, for all of that masculine energy. And I tried to eradicate it for a few years between the healing journey, not knowing that I could take it with me. And now it's just, yeah, I've really come full circle and I feel whole for the first time in my life.
Oh, I love that. No, I love that. And thank you for sharing all of that because I think, like I said, everyone has a story, but everyone has a different journey, right? Everyone's journey is
Mm,
not going to be the same. And regardless, it's going to be up and down and left and right. And there's going to be a detour, you know. I know here in the US we had the Wizard of Oz, and so it's kind of like following the yellow brick road. But it's
mm,
like, yeah, you're not just going to skip and follow the yellow brick road. Listen, that road might go this way, and then a stone might come out of nowhere, and the lion comes out. It's like it, if it was just that easy, everybody would do it, right? And so
mm,
everyone has that, and I'm so grateful for you sharing that because I think often women sometimes we feel like we have to be perfect, and we have to wear that badge of honor. I did talk about that in our interview, but I'm for being selfful. We do so much for others as women, put ourselves on the back burner, and live often an entire life like that until or unless a woman awakens to that. She might live her entire life, people pleasing and making herself available and doing everything for everyone else, and she never fully gives to herself, ever. And so I think a woman should be selfful as opposed to selfless. And being selfless, like, oh, it's just this badge of honor that I just do everything for everyone. And it's really not. It really leads to burnout. It leads to burnout. It can lead to people, her being resentful. A lot of different things come from that. And so I want to ask you to kind of maybe go a little deeper on that because I also, and I'm sure a lot of other women resonate with being the strong friend, right? Being the strong friend. You're always the one that people come to or look up to, whether or not they want to admit that, but you often are that. And often I think it could be to like a mother figure. You might be a mother figure or the one who's responsible all the time somehow, you know, when you're that person and you've been on that journey, will you be honest and tell us, did your relationships change? Did your friendships change? Like, what happened with all of that on your journey?
Yeah, for sure. No, absolutely that. And it was that. I realized that there was a lot of people that were friends with me because of what they were receiving and not for the exchange of friendship.
Mm,
So, I was constantly putting myself out for other people. And I guess, yeah, I think I spoke about it before in our interview that I was, yeah, always the one that people wanted to seek advice from, but they wouldn't always take my advice. And that got frustrating for me. But then I realized that, a lot of the time I was so exhausted all the time, 4 different jobs at once, all the time. And then if I wasn't working, I was training. Obviously, as a dancer, you've got to keep going. Or gym, there was something I was doing all of the time because I was so heavily in my masculine energy. So when I did meet up with friends out of obligation, they weren't getting the best of me. And they ended up being offended that I was hostile or a bit standoffish because I was just shattered. And that was me people pleasing. So when I started to do my healing journey, I realized that actually I was doing myself a disservice by showing up in that way.
mm,
I had to say to people, look, I'm shattered right now. Can we do another day? And, people didn't like it. And also, when I stopped giving out advice for free because people didn't want to take it because this became my work, that also became a situation. And, don't get me wrong, I learn in between that process that for me I was always given out unsolicited advice sometimes as well, so I had to
mm,
ask people, do you want advice or do you just want me to listen? Because again, if I'm meeting up with friends,
right,
that's also the exchange. We don't have to give
right.
advice, and that's something that women fall in to a pattern of, is just giving advice unwillingly. Well, actually you should ask someone, do you want advice or not? That's something that I now actively do. And I find that the friends that I do have, they don't actually want advice from me, which is really beautiful because then I get to just be human,
Right.
rather than this encyclopedia of like wounded advice,
Right.
or trauma healing,
Right.
is that actually we can just have a conversation about life, or anything. So yeah, I guess I lost a lot of friends in that time, but they weren't the right people for the version of me that I ascended to. And that's it, like every time you grow, it's like a snake has to shed skin. And then the new skin comes out underneath, right? So it's that it was the shedding of the old. And there's never love lost there. I don't have any bad blood with anyone that I've been a friend with. It's just been the ascension of life, really. And I think that everyone knows that. And we all have this unspoken thing of, we just outgrew each other. And sometimes
Yeah.
I had to have that conversation, sometimes I didn't. But ultimately, it's like what you're saying about being self-full. I have to do always what's right for me. Always. There's never a gap there. And even with my friends with little things, my whole life I've always known that I was meant for more. So I was never careless with how I treated my body or my integrity or my morals. I've always been a person of high value because I've always known that there was a higher reason for me to be here in this world, and it's to guide and to lead. And I'm really glad that I've always listened to that in myself, because that's really why my clients come to me, because they know that I'm a person that says what I do and I do what I mean.
Yes.
So there's there's
Yes.
no there's no grey area for me. Everyone knows exactly where I stand and that I'm a living example of the work that I teach. I'm the embodiment of it. I wouldn't teach it otherwise. So anything that I teach or say or share is based on my own lived experience. Otherwise I wouldn't say it.
Right. Oh, yeah, I definitely think we can all agree to that. You know, when you grow, you're going to outgrow. Like, I just
Mm,
think that's a way of life. There's no way around that, ladies, as you're listening to it, or if you see this, in online, there's no way to really get around that. As you're growing, as you're ascending, you know, the things that are no longer in alignment with who you are at this level or who you're becoming, they're going to have to fall away, and you're really doing yourself a disservice by trying to hold on to something that you probably need to let go of, right? So like she said, it's kind of a part of life. As you grow, you outgrow, and it's nothing personal. And I would say, like she said, sometimes it can be that a conversation might happen, but sometimes it's just things will just naturally take its course, you just kind of not hear from someone, and that's okay. It does not mean you're bad, they're bad. It just means you're in different places in your life. That's all. That's all. So along your journey and all of course, the ups and the downs and lefts and the rights, because it is a journey. I speak to the truth of the journey because, I know there are people out there sometimes that make it seem like it's just so easy and you're just going to wake up and life is wonderful and fabulous and there's never a challenge, never an obstacle, right? And that's just not reality. So I tend to speak to the real side. To be grounded in reality. Okay. So can you tell us about like a point you talked about a lot of stuff, but where you're at now, if you're looking back, even let's just say 10 years, you're looking back, you know, what's something that you wish? I know you wish you had people, someone to kind of help you. We all do, right? But if there's just one thing, like what's something you know now that you kind of wish you knew back
Oh, that's a hard question. It's really hard that because I don't,
then?
for me, I feel like everything happens for a reason. So I
Yeah.
actually wouldn't go back and change anything
Okay.
because I think that I've needed to, everything for me in my life has fallen in line. When I look back on, if I looked back now and turned my hot shoulder and looked over my shoulder to see what happened, everything fell into alignment. There's not one thing that happened that I could say, oh, if that didn't happen, this would happen. Like even down to losing the relatives in my life, to all of the hard things that I'd been through constantly, that all shaped me into who I am now. So I
Mhm.
actually don't wish to change anything because I needed that hardship
Yeah.
to make me a great leader. Because if I
Mm,
didn't have that, it would be inauthentic and um I guess fickle,
mhm.
like when
Yeah.
I look at leadership now, even in terms of like presidency and all of that, prime ministers for us in the UK, and obviously you have presidency in the US, I feel like governments are run on lies or, these inauthentic things, or, they're
Yeah.
giving it all the big end, but actually no one's actually living up to what they say they're going to do. I can hand on heart say, like I said, that I am the embodiment of what I teach. And I feel like that rich life experience is what makes me great at what I do. If I didn't have that, I wouldn't be a great leader. So actually, I don't actually think that I wish anything was any different. I think that everything had to be as it was, the hard stuff as well as the good. And I actually do think that in an alternate reality, in a quantum way, I probably have helped myself along the way just through meditating now in my higher self, that I probably have supported my younger self, my inner child throughout this journey, just as quantum does. So,
Yeah. 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 No, I love that. I love that. Yeah, I don't, I think you hear some people say kind of like, yes, I wouldn't change anything. And then there's some people that, if I could do this over again, they would, right? There's no right or wrong answer. So
mm,
I love the transparency. And I do believe everything does happen for a reason and it's growing you. And you have to, the healing process is expensive. You say healing isn't linear. I say healing is expensive, honey, because oh my goodness, to go from being a people pleaser, let's say, to go from being someone who might be a yes woman, we'll call it, the way that women are often conditioned to put ourselves or put other people before ourselves and living a life like that, to if she decides to change something and awaken or become enlightened and go on this path now, to becoming her best self, right? There's a process in that. And excuse me. And things are going to shift. Like I know you talked about how things kind of crumbled, and that's also part of the process. When you go from sort of A to B, you have to also be realistic about the in between process, right? Like there are things that are going to happen because life is happening for you, right? I think you would agree to say life is happening for you. And so if you're going to be healing, you have to understand that you're going on a path, and everything that happens, good, bad, or indifferent, is a part of that healing. But it's going to get you in alignment, as you say, in alignment with where you need to be. Um, when everything crumbles, Sherisse, because listen, whew, grief for me has been sort of my rock bottom. And I already talked about that. But I'm just saying it so women can understand we're both human beings, right? No one's superhuman, and life happens to all of us. Okay. When life starts to sort of crumble and things start to just, you said it was kind of back to back. So can you talk to the ladies? And there might be some gentlemen listening, but for the queens listening, can you give them some advice as all of that's happening? Because it's very easy to give up, but you know that is a part of the process. So when you see that happening, or if a woman is in that space, what would you say to her?
Let go. Stop trying to cling onto the walls. Stop trying to climb on and hold on tight. Let go and allow what needs to fall away to fall away. Like in that grief journey, you are supposed to feel it. And imagine that grief is like a river, right? And you're holding onto the riverbank really tight, and your hands are getting really sore, and your body feels really sore, and you think that there's going to be a treacherous cliffhanger at the end, but actually you let go and it's a stream and you float. And I
Mhm.
think that's the beauty of the journey of healing, is that when you allow yourself and you give yourself that permission to surrender into it, it's so much of a softer ride, Like you spoke on my podcast about having grace. That really is it. The grace is the surrender and allowing yourself to feel the feelings, allowing yourself to be upset, to be hurt, to miss that person. But there comes a time where you can't live in that space. You can visit there, you can come and sit by the river, you might even dip your feet in every once in a while. And actually, for an hour a day, if you want to dedicate, an hour, a couple of hours to sitting and feeling, honoring that person, please do. But then when you allocate that time, you need to then let life happen as well, because the greatest gift that we can give to those that have passed on is to live. And I think that's something that they don't have anymore. And I learned that at a very young age, as I just mentioned, that life is short. It's the best thing you could ever do for anyone, is to actually live life fully for you. Like you don't have to live in the legacy of someone. You don't have to follow the pathway that they would have done. You have to live for you, because we only get one life. And evidently, people that you love didn't get to fulfill or live theirs to the end, or maybe they did, right? But I think so many people are existing and not many people are fully living.
Mm.
So how can you make that space for that? Just as you allocate time to grieve, can you allocate time to enjoy, to surrender? We aren't supposed to be workhorses and to keep going, keep going, keep going. And I lived that life. I can hand on
Yes.
heart say that
Yes.
myself, that especially as a woman, we are supposed to rest more than men. That is a natural thing. We need more hours of sleep. We need more time for ourselves. We need
Yes.
stillness more. We need all of those things. So how can you up the self-care? Every day, how can you maybe take 10 minutes out of your day to make yourself a tea or a coffee and read your
Yes.
book? 10 minutes, even on the way to drop the kids to school, can you listen to a podcast on the way back when
Yes.
you're on your own? It's all of these little small things. I always say it's 1% a day of something that you can do for yourself that builds that trajectory up of ascension
Yes.
of your higher self. We spoke about it on my podcast as well. That's how you become full, is when you pour into yourself. Because if you're looking for external validation or someone else to pour into you, you'll never be fulfilled. So you have to do it yourself. And as I said, like I spoke about traveling a lot and doing the inner work, like I have a journal available that is through my website as well, that, I formulated as a result of my own healing journey. So I know the steps in between. I also teach this stuff. I work with clients
Yeah.
one-to-one on this, but no one else can do that for you.
Mm.
Every single person listening, you have a choice. You are
Yes.
not a victim. You don't have to be a victim. Yes, what happened to you was hard and difficult, but if I chose to not do anything and not be anything, I don't I wouldn't be nowhere near where I am today, and I would be probably repeating the same circles over and over again. I might have ended up with someone that it was like my dad and was an addict. There's so many different scenarios that could have happened as a result of
Yes.
me choosing to not, do what I'm doing now and step into healing and, becoming the very best version of myself every single day, which, yeah, again, it's a choice.
It is a choice. Ooh. Yes, it is definitely a choice. And everything that you said, I agree with. I mean, I'm a big proponent on self-care. Naturally, queens don't settle, you know.
Hmm.
You have to pour into you. Like you have to take care of you. There's just no way around it, ladies. At some point, you're gonna have to put yourself first and really start to prioritize your well-being. It's those little things that add up over time, like she said, just 10 minutes, even if it's 10 minutes, right? 10 minutes consistently every day. Imagine if you did that every day for a year. You
Mm.
would grow so much in your self-care, your self-love. And that's what it's about, right? It's never ever about perfection. It's just about progression. It's just about
Absolutely.
progression. Um, but before we wrap up quickly, I just want to ask a couple fun questions so they can get to know you really quick. So,
Yeah.
what is your favorite food?
Oh, that's a hard one. So I'm actually vegetarian now, which
Okay.
again came on my healing journey, but noodles probably. Any form of like ramen, pad thai, anything like that. I love a noodle.
Okay. Okay. Do you have a favorite drink?
Tea.
Okay.
I love a tea. I mean, maybe because I'm British, I don't know, but any form of tea, Earl Grey, green,
Okay.
ginseng, anything.
Okay. Do you drink wine or alcohol, like liquor?
Not very much, no.
No. Okay.
I don't mind. I don't sometimes if on a hot day I'll have an Aperol spritz, maybe, but
Okay.
very rarely. Very, very rarely.
Okay.
You'll catch me
Okay.
with a tea. You'll catch me with a tea anywhere.
Okay. All right. And what did you actually want to be when you grew up?
I'm a professional dancer.
Ah, okay. So
So I
that
got to
worked out.
fulfill that.
Check.
Yeah.
Okay. And are you for roller coasters? Do you like roller
Yes.
coasters?
Love it.
Oh,
Adrenaline junkie. I'll
yes.
jump out a plane.
Ah,
Anything.
yes, I've already done that, honey. Skydiving, yes, honey.
Yeah.
And what about your favorite candy as a child?
I used to, so I've always been a sweet tooth. As I've gotten older, it's slightly shifted, but I loved sweets, but I used to love the in between years was the millionaire shortbread. I don't know
Okay.
if you ever had that, and it's like the chocolate caramel and biscuit
Okay.
all together. That's probably, yeah, salted caramel, anything, that type of thing.
Okay. What about movie? Favorite movie?
I don't know what my favorite movie of all time is, but one of my favorite movies is Save the Last Dance.
Ah, okay. Okay. Yeah. Well, that makes sense. Okay.
Mm,
And do you like horror?
no, absolutely
Oh
not.
my gosh. I have such a hard time finding people that like horror, honey. I love Michael Myers, so.
No, that's not for me. I've lived through
Oh
enough trauma. I don't need to be reminded. My cortisol levels have
my
just kind of
gosh.
regulated. Let's not.
Oh my gosh. Okay. And do you have any pets?
No,
No. Okay.
I do love dogs, but I don't have one of my own. I think because my life is so, yeah, I'm always working place to place or like delivering somewhere. So I've never kind of, and also I love to travel. So I feel like it'd be unfair for me to have a dog and be here, there, and everywhere. But when I have kids, I will get a dog.
Okay. All right. Good stuff. Well, at least we have that, the adventure in common. With roller coasters and jumping out of planes. I've bungee jumped too, so all of that. Yes.
Yeah.
But I am so, so grateful to have had you today. Please let them know how they can, find you online, how they can connect with you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. So on social media, I am at Sherisse_Bisram. So that's on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook's just Sherisse Bisram, but I do predominantly use Instagram and more TikTok. I do have a mentor account, which is at Sherisse Bisram Mentor for anyone looking for one-to-one support. So I do calls with people. I have a 6-call package and or a 6-month guided mentorship journey. So that's all about someone that needs that deep what I spoke about, basically where I was. Anyone that needs that support, that's all available for anyone that needs to have that. And then I've also got free meditations and free masterclasses that I'm always running, so please do follow me. You can click for my newsletter and all of those things are available just all of the time, and I'm always up for answering questions as well. So if anyone's listening thinking, I've just been through this thing, I don't know what to do, drop me a DM on social media and I'm happy to have a conversation for sure. You know, anything we can do to help, that's really my thing in life. I didn't go through everything I went through to not help other people. So yeah.
Well, queens support queens, honey, and queens uplift queens. So from
Mm-hmm.
one queen to another, I am grateful for you and I acknowledge your presence and your being here and showing up today, because that's half the battle, right? 80% is just showing up. And so we are so grateful that you
Mm-hmm.
chose to show up and spread your love and your knowledge and insight with us. So thank you, Sherisse. Don't forget to follow her and connect with her. And thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Mhm.